Hey, Dr. Lindsey and Wendy here. Today we're going to go through a couple of cases of guys that have fine hair. And the issue is that, just like trees, if you have skinny trees, it takes more small trees to screen your neighbors out or to cover the grass in your backyard. If you have big bushy trees, it's much easier to. And so, expectation management's a big deal at any cosmetic practice. And so when we have guys with fine hair, I show lots of examples of kind of what to expect and what we can get. We pack things as tight as we can get, but we're still packing skinny hairs or skinny trees, and it takes a lot. And so we'll go through 4 cases today. Typically, when I see somebody that's going to need 2 cases, like the first guy we'll go through, we talk about we'll pack the hairline as tight as we can with that fine hair that you have. But then at the second case, when we come back to do your second procedure, further back towards your crown, I'll tell the cutters I want mostly 2s and 3s, but we'll still end up with a couple of hundred singles. And I would encourage people to put those along the hairline just to bolster it. And this first guy is a great example of that. And then a couple of other guys have had, and one of the cases is a repair case of another doctor that just didn't put enough hair in the hairline, and so we bolster it, and even with his fine hair, we get a great result. A third guys and fourth guy are just standard 1 case fine haired people. So take a look. I think this will be informative for you. Don't you think that we have to really pack more tightly, Wendy, when we do skinny hairs?
Yes, we do. Like you said, they're skinny hairs. You need to put them tighter together. It'll give a better result.
Right, and it's not that we try to pack it any tighter, but we make holes that are essentially the width of the hair root. So if you have a big fat hair root,
then it covers more space.
Right, and they got a big root, and we make little bigger holes. And so even if we pack them as tight as we can, they're not as dense as the skinny hairs.
Yeah.
But there's the other edge of that sword is that when you pack so many little skinny holes together, you might disrupt the blood supply and get decreased growth. So it's a fine line between dense packing and compromising the blood supply.
Well, that's what I try to explain to people, because they'll say, oh, that one looks great, this one looks like this one looks like that. But there is a reasoning for every way that we do the hair transplants. Like with thin hair, yes, it's thin hair, but if we want to pack it super, super tight, then you could say we can get great results, but then we won't have enough for other areas that we need to do. So there's
the resource,
everybody's
the resource to budget is usually not the person's money, but this donor supply.
Yeah. So there's a reasoning for doing everything, and so it was like, why does this one look like this? Why does this one look like this? But there's a reason for everything.
Right. Let's get right to it. So, case number 1. So this fellow, I'm particularly proud of his result. He's about my age, but he's got a big problem. He's got a lot of real estate to cover and a good number, but not an infinite supply of skinny hairs. And so we have to really pack him. So here's where we started.
Oh, that's very thin hair.
Yeah. But it's really dense in the back. Just above the ears, it's not so dense. And so although some guys will extend that strip all the way up to here, I'm personally too scared to do that. That's even with a great scar, that just is not enough coverage for this. Whereas we can get away with an average Lindsey scar back here without any trouble. And hopefully we'll get a great scar. So this is the end of his first case. And, we've packed that hairline, but it's packed full of skinny hairs, right?
Yes, but so if you see on the front, there's no more space because each graft has tissue around it. So there's no more space to make it even tighter than what it is in there.
Right. So let's look at the result. So at 12 months, he looks pretty doggone good, but it's still a fine hairline, particularly the way he parts it there on his left side. So when we, I think that looks outstanding. But the astute observer could say, man, your hairline's a little thin, and I wouldn't disagree with that, right?
Yeah, but it's because he has thin hair.
Thin.
Yes.
So,
thin.
So, again, this is first case, guy with thin hair. So when we do this, then you can see where we start the second case, right behind his first case, and we take a couple hundred singles and put up his left part line. And this is at exactly 12 months. Remember that with hair transplants, typically the final result's around 13 to 14 months. This is a little bit before his final result. but still, it's good enough that you can see we got a good bit of growth, but with fine hair, you can never have too much, right?
Yes. Well, you can never have too much.
Right. So this is at the end of his second case, and we've done the whole, we started behind his first case and worked back to the front of his crown. But if you look along his left hairline, you'll see that we put about 400 singles right up to there. And 400 isn't a lot, but each one counts. And so let's get to the final result when he's grown in. This is 24 months now after he first showed up. This is 24 months after he first showed up, and that's a home run. I mean, he went from not having any hair to looking like that. Oh my gosh, that's outstanding.
You know why he wanted to have a hair transplant, right?
Well, we're going to put the video up here in just a second. It talks about how he walked his daughter down the aisle with hair.
Yeah, that was his main.
Yeah, but still, that's fine hair, and some people would say, well, that's a guy with thinning hair. We had no hair to begin with, and we've got really good coverage and framed his face, and that's a home run. That's as good as you can possibly achieve with fine hair.
You can see in the corner where we added the more hairs on the second case, it's nice and dense.
Right. It's as dense as you can get it with fine hair.
Exactly. If people had unlimited donor area, we can definitely do that.
Yep.
But we work with what we have.
And so, again, 24 months out with fine hair, that looks like a good hairline. And in our typical fashion, it's got a few bumps out in front so it doesn't look like an unnatural hairline or a Christmas tree farm.
It looks very natural. And where else are you going to put in hair in there? I mean, there's no... If you try to put something in between that, you're going to hit the one next to it. So you're really not doing any favors to the patient.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, so this is our second case. This is I think he was 63 at the time we did this, 62. International businessman, wears kind of long hair, in the media a fair amount. No shortage of income or donor hair, but he's got really skinny hairs. And he came in and shopped for a while and wanted to do just half of it.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, this is nonsense. He just wanted to do his left half, and eventually I just said, we do it my way or we don't do it, because that would be stupid to build him a left triangle. So he came around after a couple of years of shopping, and we did this. So that's a pretty good plan, and we shaved just a little bit into his existing hair. He's got plenty of hair. He can kind of comb it over and camouflage this. And we packed him as tight as we can. And I told him at that time, the same spiel that I give everybody with fine hair, this will be good, but if you really think you need a little bit more to your hairline, maybe in a couple of years we'll add a little bit more. Because at 63 or 64, he's not going to go balder,
Yes, that's, yeah.
And so I didn't really expect to see him. And then he walked in last week, and he's now almost 4 years out. And now we got some pictures of him, a little video. But he wants to add a little bit to his hairline. As predicted. So this was his case. We did like 2,200 grafts on him a couple years ago. And that hairline is packed as tight as we can get it, but it's going to be packed with skinny hairs. And you packed it in there, didn't you, Wendy? I mean, you couldn't get more in there.
You can't get, yes, you can't definitely get any closer on the singles there.
Yeah. And at a month, his scar is almost invisible, even with us holding his hair up. So that looks good. Let's look at the front. As you'd expect, at a month, everything's falling out.
Yeah, everybody thinks that it didn't fall out. That it's not falling out. But yeah, when you compare the pictures, it did fall out.
Yep. And I told him, I said, hey man, roll back in here in 6 months and 12 months and we'll take a look. And when he showed up last week at 40 months out, or 46
48.
months, I go, what happened to you? And he goes, I didn't think I was supposed to come back. We do like to see you back to make sure everything turned out well and get pictures. So this is him at 46 months with fine hair, and he looks, and he's 65 or 66 now. He looks great. I think he does a little coloring to his hair, but I think he's decided he's going to comb his hair more now that there's a new administration in town, and he wants a little bit more to his hairline, and that sounds good to me. Whatever.
Yeah, he says that not even his barber can tell that he had a hair transplant. It looks very natural.
Yep. Yeah, and here's Wendy Coleman. We still left him a little bit of his peak at the front. And then more of the way he typically wears it. But you can see that we could add some hair to that. But we couldn't get any more in when we did it, right? I mean,
that's you know, we definitely put it super packed. But you couldn't fit any more grafts in there. But if you look at it now, you say, oh yeah, there's some spaces that we can fill. But yeah, it's because we don't, when the hair grows, you don't have that tissue surrounded it anymore because your body would absorb it. And that's when you can see that, oh, okay, there's a space in there.
Right.
But not during the hair transplant. You can't.
You can't plant a root that doesn't have any tissue around it like some of the automated FUE machines give you. You got to have some root around those plants and hairs.
Yeah, well, that's...
Yeah. And, again, if he had fatter hairs, this would have been a home run. You wouldn't have to do it. You'd never be back.
Yeah.
But with skinny hairs, this is what you got. This is what your parents gave you. So we're about 4 years out, and you just walked in.
Yeah.
And I think I told you, going against you is that you got such skinny hairs.
Right, thin hair.
Yeah, like thin trees, like little Arbor Vitae trees. But man, we put a bunch over there, and you look awesome. Chin down just a little bit. I just want to get a picture of the top of your head. Even a little farther, would you? I'm just gonna. That does not look like a hair transplant.
No, it doesn't. No one can tell. I ask barbers, and they say, no, I can't. I would never know.
Great. Spin around one time. I want to get a picture of that back of that head again. And so, although you wear your hair long,
I sometimes wear it short.
See
It depends on whether I've had time to go to a barber or whatever.
you can see,
right there, maybe, right?
and that is hard to find. Awesome.
I try to grow it longer, but over.
So, here's case number 3. This is a guy roughly my age, and pay particular attention to his hair. And he's got nothing in the whole front, and he's got very fine hair. And I talked with him about the limitations of fine hair, and he had shopped around. I think he shopped for 6 years before he came back to me. And I think the decision tree he was in was, do we really pack the front, or do you sprinkle a little bit in the front, a little bit in the back? And I convinced him that we should do it all in the front. But I said, you got fine hair. You're gonna maybe want to add something to your hairline in a year and a half. If and when you want to do your crown, we can get some hair to do that. And most of you guys know who watch the videos. I'm pretty blunt about this. I mean, there's really no deception going on. So, and I point that out because when he came back at a year and a half, he looks great. He needs a little bit more hair, but he was not as happy as our typical customer. And I reviewed with him really what we were talking about right now. And I think he acknowledges that he's got fine hair. But this is part of the informed discussion that I think every doctor needs to have with their patient. You need to know what to expect, and this is why we're doing this video on fine hair. So
yeah, I think you're pretty good at dealing with expectations with patients. There's no like, oh yeah, it's gonna look awesome. You have thin hair. This is what we can do, and we show them plenty of examples with the same type of hair. This is this is your hair. This is what you should expect.
We try to show you somebody that's going to look like you.
Yeah.
So here's his case design. I think we got 2,400 grafts out of him, and we put it all here in the front. If he had fat hair, that's 1,800 to 2,000 graft case. With skinny hair, took all 2,400 of them.
And that is a tight.
Yeah, it's packed as tight as you can get it. I mean, there's no room for more holes there.
That is a pretty case.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, there's just no room for more hair.
Really, that's as good as it gets.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a month, and this is how you camouflage it. He just pulls a little hair forward. And here's our scar line in a month. I mean, that thing's hard to find. Again, he's got, as you'll notice, he's got skinny hair and he's donor hair. That's what we got to work with. But he's got plenty of it. We can always get more if he decides that he wants to do that crown. So it's 6 months when he rolls in. that's pretty good growth for 6 months. Remember, audience, that it takes 13 months typically to get your results. And at 5 months, things are just starting. So that's 6 months. It's a pretty typical result. You can see from his old picture, I mean, he didn't have anything up front, so he looks dramatically better already at 6 months. And so here he is at 12 months, a month shy probably of his final result. But he walked in, and I'm really excited. I think he looks really good. I think he's got thin hair, and he's got a pretty significant color contrast. But that's good. You can see from the old picture, I mean, he had nothing there. This is a decent hairline, and were we planning a second case, like initially I think we were going to do on his crown, yeah, he needs a couple hundred more singles at his front, but there was just no room to pack more hair at his initial case. That's as good as we can get, don't you think?
Yes. Well, that's fine hair, guy. That's the result from a fine hair transplant.
Yeah.
Fine hair transplant?
Right. Not a fine hair transplant. Here's his hairline.
See, that looks great. It's very natural. Nobody can say that's a hair transplant.
Right.
It's very natural. It's thin hair, but come on. Now, we could say if he was to do a second case, we can put a couple hundred around the hairline. It will look perfect because you can't do more than that. I mean, there's some spaces, there are little spaces, but you don't need like a whole lot of hair.
Right.
I mean, there's
just a little bit.
Just a little bit, but it looks great.
And here he is from the side. Again, that he's about my age. I diagnosed a skin cancer and sent him out to get that treated sometime during the middle of his recovery. So another save, but I think it looks good. So here's a little clip of his.
And I haven't even asked him what he thinks yet, but I'll give my critique. And that is that always on these skinny-haired guys, it's just never quite enough at the hairline. So if we do a second case, as I probably mentioned last year, we'll take a couple hundred singles at some point and put along his hairline. But boy, that looks great. Turn 90 degrees to either way. That's great. And now would you face the wall? So chin up a little bit. So if at some point he wants to do a little bit more, certainly cover this in. And let me just show the scar one time. That's a pretty short haircut. There it is. That's pretty good. That's a good scar. How long did it take for your numbness to go away? Do you remember?
I would say 3 months.
Okay.
Maybe 4.
Great.
So in that little clip that I showed with poor lighting, I mean, he does have thin hair, but that's as good a case as you're going to get with a fine-haired guy, and I think he looks really good, and I'm proud of his results. I routinely show them. And if he decides he wants another little bit of, a couple hundred grafts at the front, I'm always happy to do that. We do that without trying to break the bank. If he wants to do his crown, then or somebody's planning on doing their crown, then we always just encourage people to add some hair to the hairline. The only thing that it costs the customer when that happens is they're probably gonna have a little swelling for a couple of days in the front. Nothing like the first case, but if we're getting a bunch of hair out, there's really no effort to putting in a couple hundred singles at the hairline, right?
Yes, I like doing that because, like you can definitely see the difference in the results with just a little bit more hair.
Yeah.
And if they're able to understand that it wasn't done wrong, it was just that couldn't fit anymore, and at this time after a year when everything's grown, then you can see where the spaces are, and you can put in a slit there so we can add out some hair.
Yeah. So then let's get to the final case. So here's our final case, and we see this a lot. Probably of our 40 repair cases we do a year, at least a half are people that had inadequate hair placed in the recipient area. So this is a kid, I don't know, a 25 or 30-year-old kid that had gone to a reputable guy and just didn't get much result. And so we just treat this like a plug repair. But if you look, those are skinny hairs. If he had fatter hairs, he'd still be here because there just wasn't enough put in. But he's just a skinny-haired guy, and he just needs more hair, right?
Yes, I mean, if you look at the way that the hair grew, there's definitely more space to put in more hair.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with his first case.
Yeah,
but
well, that's the thing is that we can't criticize. We can't say they didn't put enough because there's a lot of factors.
He might have pulled them out.
He might have put them out. Yes, so it's different things. So, but that's what he ended up with.
So here's our plan. We're just dealing with the first inch or so and irregularizing that hairline a little bit. This should be easy to take care of, and it sure was. So here we've trimmed him down. We're going to make holes. We're making the assumption that this guy is paid for all these hairs and they're going to keep growing. So we're just going to make holes as close as we can to these hairs without damaging them, right?
Yes, and you can definitely see more. I mean, there is a lot of space in between those.
Yeah. And so here's his right side and across the front. Lots of holes. We packed it tight, but it's going to be packed tight of skinny hairs, right?
That's right. But you can see that there was definitely plenty of space to put in some slits.
Yeah. And so here's the end of the case. Remember that white stuff is a little bit of the root ball sticking up to this, but most of the root's way down inside. It's only because of the color contrast you see that white, but that's packed in there nicely.
Yeah, and the spaces that you see now, those are spaces where he had the hair from his previous hair transplant somewhere else.
Right. And here he is at 14 months. That's pretty good. If you look at his pre-op picture, he didn't have much hair there, and even with that color contrast, that's a pretty good result.
Yeah, it looks natural. It looks great.
Yeah. And, again, it doesn't look like a hair transplant. It's an irregular line.
And the space that it has now is natural space that we have between our hair.
Yeah. And we've got a little video of him that we'll put up, and, this will show, this, again, shows a typical result on a fine-haired guy, and this is a repair case.
Okay, so this guy is about 13 months out from a repair case done by a reputable guy. Going for this kid is that he has got nice hair that layers and styles well. Going against is he's from Nepal, and we've done a couple guys from Nepal, and they tend to have very fragile hair. But pretty good, and it's been 13 months. Probably a little bit more left to grow on these repair cases.
And so now you can see exactly what we did. This is him from above looking down, even with lighter skin and really dark hair. That looks good.
Yeah.
So to summarize, fat-haired people take fewer grafts to cover 1 square inch. Skinny hair guys take more hairs, but we can only pack them as tight as the roots and the recipient area will allow us to get. And so these are 4 similar but yet different guys that have fine hair, and the results that I think you can expect with this. The summary is, we pack it as tight as your head will allow, but we have to work with the hair that you show up here with. And typically with finer haired guys, if we're doing a hairline, at some point we're probably going to want to add a few hairs to that. At some point it might be a case a couple years down the road, or it might be at your planned second or crown case. But if you pack it tight and you just stick to the principles of an irregular hairline, dense packing, attention to detail, and not pulling out the grafts and proper cleaning, it's probably going to work out well, don't you think, Wendy?
Yes, it does, and it's a great. I think it's a great way to show what they can expect on the thin hair, because we can show them.
Yeah, we can show you fat
guys
curly
with
hair.
awesome results, but we like to show you something that is very similar to you, to whatever you have, to what we got to work with, so that way we deal with expectations, so you know what to expect with.
Right.
Through the whole.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
And so when you, the potential patient, are shopping with doctors, make sure you look at pictures of guys that have hair like you have. Our webpage, we have, it's divided into younger guys, older guys, little cases, big cases, and you can just scroll down through it and see guys with skinny hair and thicker hair. And we have, right now we have 200 videos online. I've posted 1,000 cases on 2 consumer-oriented websites. There's no reason why people can't know what to expect. And so if you're shopping and your doctor doesn't have a lot of examples, how come? And let's see some, and maybe you should do a little bit more research.
Yes, just I mean, we even try to match it with your hair color. So that's 4 people with different hair colors, different skins, different things. So we try to match you exactly what we think you look.
Right. And there's never an emergency hair transplant. Do your research. And if Wendy and I can help you, give us a call. Thanks.